Well, thank you. Oh, this is very loud. Well, thank you guys for being here. Bless you for taking your time this evening and going through these very difficult topics. I'm going to share with you some things we found in Travis County. Again, I ran for city council, and we found that Travis County is violating state election laws and the Constitution. I'm going to show you the laws. I'm going to show you the evidence of our case. We have a case in the appeals court, the Third Court of Appeals in Travis County, first case in the state challenging electronic voting machines and their corruption, and how we are very vulnerable as a state with these machines. I'm going to show you that. And I'll tell you what, as a person who has a background in the computer industry, I'm the last person you want to steal an election from, I'll tell you that. I know some math, and I know how computers work. So we're going to walk through this, and right now we have an appeal, like I said, in the third court, and at the end I'm going to show you what we can do. And the last thing we want to do is, we love our candidates, we block walk, we phone bank. The last thing we want is our candidate's election to be stolen in the last 2 hours down at Central County of the county. It's the last thing. And I'm going to show you what happened to us. Okay, in Austin, we use the HART voting system. And there's two components to this. We have the machine that we cast the vote on, and then we have what they call a mobile ballot box. It's a memory card where all the votes from the machines are stored at the precinct or at the voting location where we cast our vote. So all our votes are stored on this guy here. And you have the sheriff's deputies who escort these cards down to Central County and all the counties in the state here that use electronic voting. So we have these memory cards where all the votes are being stored. So I just kind of want to walk everybody through that. Texas is phenomenal. Our legislature has done an excellent job at trying to protect us from corruption in electronic voting. And in Texas, we have a statute. I'm going to go through some statutes here. In Chapter 52, we say in Texas, the vote is by official ballot. That seems very simple. But I'll tell you, there are a lot of states in this country that don't have those laws. We are only votes by official ballot. So what is a ballot? The statutes also and the Constitution define what a ballot is. So we're kind of going back to first principles here. I'm an engineer. I was a manager for many engineers in the semiconductor industry in Asia and all across the country. I have engineers that work for me. And, you know, we always work off of specs. Engineers work off of specs. So when I had my election issues, I went to the election code and said, what's a ballot? So the ballot is defined in the Constitution as it has to have a serial number. Isn't that interesting? You can't vote on any old piece of paper in Texas. It has to have a serial number, sequential serial number, so it can be tracked. And that's very interesting. A lot of states don't have that requirement, but we do. The ballot also has to have the name and date of the election. Seems pretty simple. You also have to have voting squares. The election laws in Texas say you have to have voting squares to the left of every candidate's name. We see that when we vote. You also have to have voting instructions. So I'm going to show you, this is a ballot, a mail-in ballot from Travis County, and it has these criteria for what an official ballot is. It has a serial number, it has the name and date of the election, and it actually has instructions, and it has boxes. Looks like a ballot, it is a ballot. It's a formal ballot. Interesting, in Texas, when we go vote, there's 3 records that document what our vote result is. The first one is the result tabulation. You have to, for electronic voting, we have to have a computer that adds up the votes, kind of like a pocket, a little calculator. You also have to have precinct returns. How many people in here have been election judges? Oh, I love y'all. I just love you. So remember those tapes you sign? You print the results tapes and you sign them and you turn them into the county. Well, I'll tell you what, Travis County instructed judges to not print the tapes. Yes, they told them don't print them. And I'll show you that. And we got that in our lawsuit, in our discovery. So you got to print the tape and you have to sign it. Election judges sign it, poll watchers sign it, and you take them home and you turn them into the county, right? In case there's corruption or something that goes on at Central County, all right? Well, that's a problem in Travis County. The last thing, and this is a new thing, People here who have been candidates and have asked for recounts probably know this. There are 2 statutes in the state that talk about ballot image storage. Those computers, those computerized voting machines, are supposed to have a ballot image. What's a ballot? It's got to have a serial number. It's got to have boxes. It has to have the date of the election. That's a ballot. What's a ballot image? Picture of a ballot. JPEG, PDF, bitmap. Those are pictures. Okay? And you know, when you see the ballot when you vote. So when we challenged our election results, we went to the county and said we want a manual recount of the ballot images per Chapter 213 in the election code. Travis County said, we can't print them. We can't print ballot images. And by the way, no one in the state can print ballot images. 3 records are supposed to be retained. The results tabulation, the results tapes at the precinct before they leave the building, and then a ballot image. The 3rd one, no one in the state can do. We're the first lawsuit who's challenged this and said these voting machines are not meeting state code. So I want to show you what a results tape looks like. I'm sorry for the graphics, my mistake. But this is a tape. I've kind of got it blown up. What these results tapes show are each candidate. Here you see David Dewhurst and Ted Cruz when they were running for Senate. And you can see the result of each one at each precinct. That's what a result tape has. And they're supposed to print those and sign them before you leave the location in case the electronic memory card gets corrupted. You have a result. You have a backup. Well, in Travis County, this is the judge's envelope. They told him, don't print it. Don't print the tally tape. So that record's missing. So what's missing? The ballot image is missing in my election, and also the tape is missing. And I'm going to show you that the electronic voting tabulation is corrupted, and we got results for that in our discovery in our lawsuit. This is a poll watcher affidavit. Poll watchers are supposed to sign the tapes. It's actually a misdemeanor to block a poll watcher, and it's a misdemeanor for judges not to turn those tapes in. That's a bit of a problem in Travis County. Okay, here's a great part of the election code. Chapter 128 says ballot image storage is what computerized voting systems are supposed to have. Why is it across the state of Texas we don't have these? We need to ask that question, and our lawsuit is dealing with that. Again, 2 of the 3 election in Travis County is missing. This is what Travis County produced as, they say, well, we can't do a ballot image, but what we can do is a cast vote record, which has all the information of how you voted. Well, basically, this is a printout from a data structure, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, 1 per page. And I want to show you what it has on it. Let me say what it doesn't have. There's no serial number. There's no date of the election. There's no name of the election. There's not even voting squares and all the candidates' names. It's just a printout, 1 per page, of what the computer says we voted. This is what was counted in my recount, and we said, no, that's not a ballot. We're going to sue because the county's not producing the results. That's not a ballot. All right. Like I said, no serial number, no date of the election, no voting squares, and all the candidates' names aren't even there. So other issues that happened on election night with our election. And I'm going to go through these very quickly, so forgive me for it being kind of fast, but we've only got a few minutes. So we had more ballots than names during early voting in 15 out of 18 precincts. That doesn't work. I know math. I know a little math. I do. So that was we said, that was our first thing. You've got 15 precincts. You had more ballots than names. And so we said we want to sue. We want to understand where all this is coming from and where, why the vote's not adding up. And I'm going to go through a little algebra here, so forgive me for going through this. But we had also seen, we had a November general election that I was in with my opponent, and then we were in a runoff. What we noticed in the top 80% of where votes were counted, I'm an engineer, And if you're gonna steal an election, gosh, who's heard of the 80-20 rule in here? Yes, yes. So, engineers, we work on the big hitters. We work on the top 80%. So I said, gosh, if I'm going to steal this, what would I do? I'm an engineer. I'd focus on the top precincts where 80% of the votes are going to be cast. So we looked at that. And we said, let's look at myself and my opponent in the general. There were 8 candidates. But I said, let's look at just me and my little opponent. The precincts, the numbers that I got in the precinct, what he got, and the percentage that I got relative to both he and I, and the same in the runoff. We noticed there were 3 precincts that did not change numbers. And half the people attrited out. In a runoff, you have less voters. So it didn't make sense. So I had this statistician friend, and he goes, Laura, try some algebra. Let's try something. Why don't you plot on the x-axis of a graph the percent you got in the general, and then on the y-axis, plot what you got in the runoff, and do that for other candidates and see if there's a correlation. Okay, so hang with me on this. So we did this for a bunch of candidates in the runoff, several candidates that were also in a runoff in last December. And we see a scatter graph. This is one. This is another candidate, kind of sees scatter graph. Another candidate, scatter, not real correlation. And that one's mine. A straight line, R squared's 0.98. That looks like a program. Looks like I see a lot of shaking heads out there, people who like algebra, a lot of shaking heads. And I'll tell you what, I was in the semiconductor industry, and I could shut down $1 billion factory with data less correlated than that. And I did it many times in 17 years. That's a real signature. So we filed this lawsuit. We said something is wrong, what's happening? We think there was a program or there was a mistake somewhere. So what we did, as an engineer, I said, I want to see the audit logs of these voting machines. I want to see at Central Counting Computer, were there any problems? Audit logs show time date stamp of every activity on the main computer. And I'm going to show you what we found. We found corruption errors. You'll see invalid, corrupt mobile ballot box. 9 times on election night we found this error. We asked the judge in our court case, can we please get to that card and see if there's a program on it? He said no. Can we take the deposition of the administrator who's putting this card in 9 times on election night, showing up corruption is not a good word in elections. It's just not. So can we take the deposition? He said no. And he said, Ms. Pressley, you have no evidence. Your case is dismissed. That's what he told me. And I said, I respectfully disagree with that. I think we have evidence. We had, like I said, corruption errors all through election night on the main tally computer tabulating votes. We also showed there were, you see multiple ones there. We also showed who had access to these memory cards. How many people's computer shuts off after 15 minutes when you're not there? All right? Interestingly, the computer programming these memory cards in Travis County were open 10 days straight with no log off. Twice. We got the audit logs of the computers programming the cards. So here's a mobile ballot box here. It was open on 11/21, and it wasn't logged out until 10 days later, straight. 2 options. Maybe it was open for 10 days straight, who had access to it, or there were possibly logs deleted. Either case is not good, either one. Another case, 12/1 to 12/10, 9 days open with no log out. My computer logs out after 15 minutes, but the most important computer at Travis County stays on for 10 days straight, 24 hours a day. Who had access? So we showed corruption errors, we showed access. There's no results tapes and there's no ballot images. Our lawsuit says you can't tell what the result's supposed to be, so we want a new election. And by the way, with that new election, I want paper ballots because the machines can't keep an image like it's supposed to. That's our lawsuit in a nutshell. We're the first one in the state to do this, almost. One more thing. Oh, thank you. So I want to show kind of, let's skip through this, kind of get to the bottom line. So what are we asking the appeals court to do? First of all, we're saying please render an opinion that a ballot has to meet the Texas Constitution and the statutes for election records. Okay, that's the first thing. We want the appeals court to say, you have to have a real ballot. Isn't that what the law says? I just showed you the law. We want them to make a ruling on a ballot image. Why is it that nowhere across the state can we have a ballot image? We looked up the patents for the Hart voting machines. The patents say it can do it. Yes, the patents say it can do it. So let's hold them to it. We want the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is allowing this stuff to occur. They're telling Travis County, don't print the tapes. Excuse me, the Secretary of State cannot tell counties to not honor the law. We need an appeals court to help us with that. We also want the appeals court to acknowledge the corruption errors with these machines. And since the results cannot be ascertained, I want a new election because I don't believe my opponent beat me 2-1 when I was winning in the polls and my electioneers on election night said, you got this in the bag. And he comes up 2-1 as a winner. I don't believe it. And as we see here, records are missing, no results tape, no ballot image, and the tabulation's corrupted. That's a problem. So what can we do as a county? Do you print results tapes? You do. Interesting. On early voting, do you print results tapes? No. No one in the state does. You do not want to print results tapes for early voting because you don't want to know who won. Early voting is very vulnerable. There's no ballot image, of course. There's no results tape. Early voting is a very vulnerable time, and our vote's not very secure. Your vote is most secure, most likely, in the ballot by mail. But on election day, you're supposed to keep the tape. So you get to choose when you can vote. Early voting is a big risk. The second thing is, so we have to print results tapes. That's number one on election day. We're asking that counties really put pressure on their county clerks to print ballot images. Well, that cast vote record, I'm sorry, it didn't have a serial number. Print the ballot image. Well, you can't do it, then why are we using these machines? Okay, why? Also, security of the main computers. You can have a poll watcher down at the tally computer on election night, watching and seeing if there's corruption errors. That's allowed. It's an unusual thing that's not been done probably in the past. So I'm running out of time, and I just want to say thank you. I'm here for two things, to educate and to ask for help. We're in this huge lawsuit. We're in the appeal process. And my husband and I are, we've put in $70,000 of our own money into this case, and we've raised about $60,000. So we're here. If we're touching your heart and you want to see this happen, we need your help. So we'll have a sign-up sheet that we're going to pass around, and if you're interested in donating, we've got an envelope. And I just want to say bless you guys for being here. And we're not giving, and I'll tell you what, there was a deal given to us to not do the appeal, and we didn't take it. And we said, we got to do this for the state. It's not just about little District 4, it's about us. It's about our vote. So bless you. Do we have time for one question, one or two questions? Yes, ma'am.
I know at the poll on election night, there's supposed to be someone from the opposing party, so to speak.
Yes.
Yes, and so did you have a representative? Did we have a representative?
At the polls, we had poll watchers there. We knew they weren't going to print the tapes. They told us. But what's happening is the election corruption's going on in one place, not at every single polling location and precinct. It's happening at the central count computer at the county. And, you know, it may not be where it's the county clerk is part of this. Who knows? The point is it's vulnerable. It's a vulnerable system.
What should have happened on a corrupt disk? What should have happened?
There's procedures that the Hart voting system says. There's standard operating procedures. When you get a corrupt card, you're supposed to pull in the original voting machines and start downloading votes from there. So there's procedures, and those were not followed. Yes, sir.
Is there a way we could have copies of our ballot?
Say that again.
If we had copies of our ballot, a receipt or anything, or actually how we voted, if we have hard proof of what happened.
Well, then all the voters would have to get together and show their receipts. That's awful hard.
I know it would be.
That's awful hard. We done? Okay, we're done. So bless you guys. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be here. So thank you guys. Thank you.